If you like this video, please give it a like and hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell not to miss more content coming soon. Welcome back to another episode of FPL Squad Picks. It's Game Week 25, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Game Week 24 fixture headlines, a points review, transfer options, team selection, a captaincy, take a look at the double game weeks to come, and have a look at some chip strategies going forward. Game Week 24 is now finished, and here is a quick run through of the fixture headlines. So we have the Leicester v Liverpool game, which saw Salah get back on the score sheet. So he's showing some consistency again, which is good for Salah owners. But in the last 10 minutes, there seemed to be a moment of madness where Leicester just run riot and came back with 3 goals. All the usual hitters getting involved in the action. You've got Vardy, Maddison and Barnes. Then you've got the Burnley fixture, which saw a clean sheet for those of us who brought in defenders and goalkeepers for the double game week. And we've also got another clean sheet with Man City with another 3-0. Gundogan again coming back with more goals and obviously benefiting for anyone that captained him that game. The downside to that was that he did pick up an injury, which meant he'd missed the second fixture within this game week. But I think anyone that's captained him still had a good points haul. Just a shame that we couldn't get some more. The Villa game saw Martinez get another amazing score, double figures. I think it's the most saves made. The Southampton v Wolves fixture saw Danny Ings get a goal, but unfortunately they couldn't get the win, with Neves and Neto both getting goals to secure a win for Wolves. Southampton have been looking pretty weak at the back, to be honest, at the moment. Even though they are getting some attacking returns, the defensive attributes of their team aren't really performing at the moment, even though they've got a few people back, but still a few out injured, which are making the difference. Then we have the West Brom and Man United game, where West Brom were very unlucky not to get a few more goals against Man United, but with a bit of Bruno magic they managed to clinch a draw. Quite a frustrating fixture for United fans, trying to get that win but just couldn't seem to get there, and leaving themselves quite open at the back, to slipping down the table a little bit even more now with the gap widening between City and United. Arsenal v Leeds then was the next game up, and Aubameyang back with a hat-trick, so great for people who are looking for a bit of a differential. So Leeds again getting some good attacking returns, but unfortunately couldn't get the win. Rafinha back in amongst the goals again, but nothing from Bamford in this game. Then we have the Fulham v Everton fixture, where Fulham managed to actually get a win against Everton, with 2 goals from their new forward. He did great, had 2 clean goals, and they managed to keep Everton out completely. I think them without Dominic Calvert-Lewin is really showing at the moment that they need that sort of talisman up front. And then we have the West Ham v Sheffield United game, which was another 3-0. West Ham showing great form without Antonio, and no goals from Souček, but still finding goals in amongst their midfielders. Jesse Lingard's having a stormer at their game at the moment. He's performing really well, showing that he can get around the field, get in amongst the action. Even though he only got an assist, he was awarded man of the match for just a great performance in that fixture. The Chelsea v Newcastle game saw Werner finally get his goal, so I think he'll be very pleased with that one. There's a little bit of a scrappy one, but they all count, and for someone that's been in and amongst that danger zone trying to get into those goals for so long, I think he'll be very appreciative of managing to finally get on the score sheet. Then we've got Burnley v Fulham in the second round of fixtures. For the double game week fixtures in this game week 24, the Burnley side saw no Ben Mee, unfortunately, due to injury. He had to sit this one out. And the Fulham team coming off a very good performance and a win. They had a draw with both Barnes and Rodriguez getting in amongst the points for Burnley, so showing some good attacking returns from their forwards. But the defenders couldn't keep a clean sheet against Fulham, who quite deservedly got the draw against them. And then the second fixture was the Everton-Man City game. There was no Dominic Calvert-Lewin again, but also no Gundogan for this fixture for Man City. And they held them to 1-1 for half-time, but Man City then were just too strong, just kept coming at them, and three in midfielders, Foden, Silva and Mahrez all got absolutely storming goals. In this game we did see Rodriguez come off the bench for Everton, who looked like he took a little bit of a knock in the previous game, but didn't seem to have any long-lasting injuries from that, but enough to not start the fixture. And even Kevin De Bruyne getting a bit of a run out towards the last few minutes of the game. So I think that'll be something to look forward to now with how do we fit him within our team with the fixtures going forward for Man City. If you'd like to keep up to date with the latest video posts, locked in team selections and chat during the game week, then you can follow me on Twitter at FPL Squad Picks. So here is a review of my team. This is so far and not been updated as of yet, because there are still a few bonus points I think to be had and the rank positions to be changed. So this is basically from the first round of games before the double game weeks were played in terms of rank. But the overall points so far, I'm on 96 and with a green arrow. And then you've got a rank rise of 59,680, which I was very pleased with. Seen a clean sheet from Nick Pope, but unfortunately Martinez has managed to outscore him with a single game week yet again. But then you've also got some bad decisions. I was thinking maybe a Trent Alexander-Arnold, shame that he couldn't keep a clean sheet, but I got a clean sheet from Sofal, one from Cancelo as well, and a second game out of him, so got some decent defensive points there as well. We got the captaincy on Gundogan, which was a very last minute switch. Within a few seconds before the deadline, I'd actually listened to a bit of advice and thought, do you know what, with a double game week, all he has to do is make 2 appearances and do something within each game, and he's going to outscore Bruno. But he managed to do all that in one fixture. Bruno still managed to get a return as well, which I was very pleased with, and Salah and Foden in the second fixture. So across the midfield, I've got a few goals and assists across each player. Souček not doing much, but with the clean sheet, managed to get an extra point there for the clean sheet bonus. My forwards not doing much at all. Bit disappointing on those. Did take a bit of a punt on Cavani, but didn't pay off. But even with that, because Antonio didn't play, and I had Dominic Calvert-Lewin, it was definitely worth getting someone else in for that position. So with no captaincy playing in this second round of games, and with Gundogan didn't even travel with the team, was left out completely to rest up. It was down to Cancelo and Foden, and Foden showing again that he can get some attacking returns. Great movement throughout the game, managed to get himself into dangerous areas, and the one time he was free and open, did take a bit of a lucky deflection into the net, but it was on target, his shot before that anyway, so he got the goal, which I was very pleased with. Seems like he gets one sort of every other game, but he's doing really well for his price as well. That's not a bad return, getting double figures in this week. Kevin De Bruyne was also something to mention, that he did come off the bench, so I think that will be something to look at going forward. And we've got these premium players now that are they performing as well, but thankfully both Fernandes and Salah have shown that they are still having consistent points. But I think when you look at some of the Spurs assets coming in the future with Kane and Son, there's going to have to be some decisions made, I think, with a few teams where what premium players, like it was towards the beginning of the season really, which of the 3 or maybe 4 if you can squeeze them in, you're going to go with. Looking at the transfers made from last week, there was a consideration to maybe switch out Justin, but in the end it was just an option to bench him, with McCarthy out for Pope, which proved to be a good points haul and a double figure, but Martinez still managing to outscore him. And I also then took a punt on DCL out and brought Cavani in. There's a few people talking about potentially bringing him in, but I thought he could be a bit of a differential. Didn't prove out to be the greatest of picks, to be honest, because he didn't do much at all. But it's still a good fixture going forward now into game week 25. Manchester United have got Newcastle, so again he's quite a good pick for that one. So that was my thinking, that it's not just for this week. If he does flop a bit on this one, then you've got a second chance almost with him if I do end up staying with the same squad. So I had 2 free transfers and I used them both. My initial plan when I had the rollover transfer was to sort of save that for the game week 26, but we still haven't had word of the fixtures yet. and it's just how close are they going to leave it before we have to make the Game Week 25 team. So I've got sort of one eye on that as well, and I thought if I just take a punt, this is a double game week, but Man United had a really good fixture. Let's see if it works out. If I'd stuck with the plan of rolling that free transfer over to make it to Game Week 26, then I probably wouldn't have brought in both Pope and Cavani. I did have Dominic Calvert-Lewin and McCarthy in place there, so I would have had the option of having McCarthy for a double game week in number 25. But to be honest, the way that Southampton have been leaking goals, and against Chelsea and Leeds, I'd like to think that they'd probably concede in both fixtures. So would have gone for Martinez in the game week 25, but again, that's against Leicester. So I think that's what sort of drove me to go for the Nick Pope switch. But if I was sort of really sticking to my plan, I would have probably just played Martinez and hoped for the best against the Leicester attack, and then gone for, even with the double with McCarthy, I think it would have been a lot better. But then instead of bringing in Cavani, the one change I would have made last week would have been Bamford. Regardless of how well he did this week, is more looking forward to this double game week that's coming. And then I could have looked to potentially switch out a midfielder for another Leeds player. And I still would have had 2 free transfers then, which would have rolled into the game week 26. But obviously that hasn't worked out that way. I sort of went for a bit of a punt. Still could reap some benefits from it from this week, as I mentioned. But my sort of plan going forward now, to target the double that's coming up in game week 25, with Leeds and Southampton having 2 lots of fixtures. And obviously there's still a to be announced potential game week 26 bigger double game week. So not really looking to use any chips or anything for this game week coming up, the game week 25, but certainly looking to target the Leeds players over the Southampton attack. Definitely not the Southampton defence. I think Danny Ings is a great shout. Walcott was performing really well before he went out injured. Not sure if he's back yet, if he's going to be fit enough to play the full game. Armstrong is also another differential. He seems to be getting in amongst the action, but again, just they're not being consistent enough. And against a solid Chelsea defence, which Tuchel seemed to have got them in order. And a Leeds team that can concede, but we'll just have to wait and see how that goes really with the Southampton team. I think it's probably a bit safer to bet your sort of double game week players on the Leeds players. Against Wolves, they can be a good defensive team for the first game. So not expecting a lot from there, so anything would be a bonus. But more against that sort of leaky Southampton defence, I think they could get something. They could get 1 goal or could get a few. So we'll have to wait and see on that as well. But my general sort of options would be, I've got Antonio, who's a doubt at the moment, probably would be fit enough for the Spurs fixture. So I could switch him out for Bamford and just do a 1 straight swap. That would probably be the way I'd be looking at to do it quite safely, and quite an easy switch, which would only give me then 2 double game week players. The other more sort of risky strategy would be to then, again, looking at the West Ham players, and I know that their next few fixtures are quite difficult going forward. So even though he's been a great sort of bench option, but also coming off the bench a lot of the times with a lot of point scores, I might even look to switch Souček out for Rafinha. Rafinha's been on form, been getting in amongst the action. Even last week he got an assist. So I think that with just based on the fixtures and the amount of games that they've got to play, I think that a 4-point hit this week wouldn't be that bad, especially then if I even look to captain one of them potentially. That 4-point hit that you're taking would hopefully be sort of swallowed up with appearance points for the 2 games that they're playing. Leeds, without injury, don't seem to change their setup too much from what they play week in, week out. If you're enjoying the video and would like to support the channel, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Now let's get back to it. So here's my team if I was to make only the 1 change and bring in Cavani this week. And these are the players that I'd be looking to potentially bench. Obviously Justin is sort of self-explanatory with him being injured, and the same with Calvert-Lewin. But it'd be difficult really benching Sofal at this point, because they are against a team where Sheffield United, you're not really expecting a lot of attacking returns from them, but it's just also then thinking, could I bench Souček in his place and play 4 at the back, or do I play Soufal instead of Dallas? But then you're potentially missing out on the attacking returns of Dallas against Arsenal, who have looked a bit weaker in the back. But we just can't predict that at the moment. So it's really going to be a case of, go for it, make a decision, and hope for the best. But again, if you look at the sort of setup that I've got here, I'm already having to bench someone that I potentially don't really want to bench or has got a good fixture. If I start making double changes, like bringing in Nick Pope, for instance, I'm going to have to bring Martinez on to the bench against the Brighton team, which again is a good fixture. If I change Justin for Ben Mee, I'm already sort of not 100% with bringing Soufal or Dallas onto the bench. That gives me another player that I want to consider. Who do I bench? Do I even potentially look at Trent Alexander-Arnold benching with Cancelo hopefully having a double game week? He sort of is self-picks. Do I go for 1 up front and go for 4 at the back? Or do I drop Souček as well and go for even more and go for a very heavy defensive team? Just throws a lot more sort of questions into the mix, really, and making a lot more hard bench decisions. So I think it might be just a case of this week maybe looking at the Nick Pope move, because it's something that it wouldn't hurt the rest of the team so much in terms of who do I bench, who do I keep. It's just a straight switch for Martinez. And if I do hopefully get some good news that Antonio is playing, I've got both Antonio and Watkins up front, and I could still go for a 5 midfield. I've got 3 at the back then, but I've also got 1 on the bench waiting, that if someone doesn't play, if Antonio didn't make it, Soufal or Dallas could potentially come into place for them. So I think if I start thinking about it too much and adding too many players to this, even though it would build for the next weeks, I think it's just probably going to be a better idea to transfer that over and get 2 transfers next week. And then maybe if Calvert-Lewin is still injured or Antonio is still injured, maybe look to bring in a Bamford. Even look at then transferring Souček and changing him over to Rafinha. So I'd have 3 players with Dallas for Leeds in that game week 25. So that would then use up my transfers, which I've still got a wild card. So that potentially means I could use that wild card going into 26 once we know more about who's playing and if this team doesn't really fit within that game week. For captaincy this week, I am looking at either Bamford or Rafinha. At the moment here, I've got Bamford as captain and Rafinha as vice. There could be an argument to switch those round. I think either would be a good pick this week. There could be an argument made also for some of the Southampton differentials, as I mentioned, but for me personally, I just don't think it's worth the hit bringing those players in at the moment. But if you do hold some of those players, say a Danny Ings, for instance, definitely is in there within the options for captaincy. The other options throughout the fixtures here, I've put the best of the rest at the bottom there, saying United, Burnley, Liverpool and City. If you look at their fixture base and some form that they're in, you could even go for a Nick Pope captaincy against a West Brom team. But even West Brom are starting to show signs of sort of recuperating some clean sheets or at least holding out for a draw. You've also got Liverpool against Everton. Everton have shown in the last 2 fixtures that they are leaking goals at the moment, and whether they win or not is another matter. But Liverpool are starting to show some signs that they can score goals, especially keeping that clean sheet against RB Leipzig in the Champions League. You've also got then Manchester City, even though it's against an Arsenal team that are looking a lot better. We've just seen how consistent City can be. So any of their players are obviously a good shout for captaincy. And Man United against Newcastle. They're missing a few key players still in defence, and they're still without Wilson. So with a full strength squad except for Pogba, you'd like to think that they could do some damage, but who knows? They've just had a few fixtures there where they've gone a bit up and down, going from 9-0 to a 1-1. So who knows? But I think there's an argument made there. Bruno Fernandes, for instance, would be another good captaincy, even without the double game week. But from what I've learned from my last week, by having Gundogan as captain, that extra game is worth a lot more. If they get just the appearance points, if they manage to keep a clean sheet as a midfielder even, it's definitely worth it. So all it'll take is 1 or 2 attacking returns. And for me personally, bringing these both players in, Bamford and Rafinha, I'm going to be taking a 4-point hit to do so. So it would sort of cover that 4-point hit as well. With the 2 games, hopefully if they just got the minimum 2 points of both fixtures, that's the 4 points that I'd be having from my 4-point hit back as a captaincy pick. So I think it's probably the wisest time to take a 4-point hit and captaincy one of those players whilst they have a double game week. So as mentioned, we have double game week in game week 25, with Leeds v Southampton being the extra fixture that's been added to this game week. Game week 26, there is talk of it being a potential double game week and being a big one. And we'll have quite a few teams there which should have some double game week fixtures, but they're still yet to announce those. So watch this space, and as soon as that's up, we'll take a look into that. Here we're going to take a little look at some chip strategy options. Firstly, I'm going to go through the options for myself with the chips that I have left, which are wildcard and triple captain. Then we're going to take a little look at some other options which other FPL managers might find more beneficial if it's more what their chips are and what they have left, not like the ones that I've got left. So the first option here would be I've got game week 25 wildcard to set up for that double game week with the Leeds and Southampton game, but with one eye on the game week 26 to then bring in a triple captaincy option. This is sort of my updated plan. Initially, I was hoping to keep 2 transfers, to not have to spend the wild card, roll those over until I get to this point where I can then use that double transfer in game week 26 and the triple captaincy. But by taking that punt on Cavani last week, I've lost that extra free transfer now, so I have only got the one rolling forward. So it's going to be a bit of luck really in terms of which games are announced for the game week 26, and also it will depend on whether they get announced in time so that it's even worth using that wild card, because I don't really want to use a wild card guessing what will be coming up in game week 26. The next option then would be for a free transfer only in game week 25, or take the 4-point hit that I've just mentioned with Bamford and Rafinha. So that then would leave me open to either for game week 26, if it's a late announcement of fixtures and there's some really good double game weeks going on, then I could look to just hit the wild card in that week and try and get a starting 11 of all double game week players and fill my bench with some cheap options to get some really good money into that main team. But being a wild card, obviously that would then roll over into the next week, so I don't want to have such a weak bench that I can't have anyone coming off because they're not playing. The other option would be if I did take either just the one transfer or take a 4-point hit this week in game week 25, I could play just a triple captaincy. And hopefully if I've got a player already within it that's got a good set of fixtures, I could look to triple captain them and see how that strategy goes as well. But it will all depend on what games are announced for that game week 26. As I mentioned, the chips that I have are the wildcard and triple captain. Some people may have a free hit option, and some people may have the bench boost option still. So the option 3 that I've put here is for game week 25 to still hit a wildcard, which would then potentially leave you open to either doing very similar to my first option with hitting the triple captaincy, or you could look to bench boost. If we get those fixtures before the deadline in game week 25, and you've got an idea of a team for a wildcard team in game week 25 that would be set up for a full 15 in the game week 26, then that would be ideal time to obviously hit your bench boost. At the moment, I think if you were to have the free hit, I haven't included it on the chip strategies for these game weeks because I think if you have got that chip still, it's really not going to serve you well here by making a team for game week 25 and then having it sort of change back for game week 26, or even trying to just hit for game week 26, you can't use a triple captain, you can't use a bench boost, you're only going to get the starting 11 doubles, and then it will revert back again. But we do have going forward, I think in Game Week 29, we've got a few blank fixtures. So I think that would be an ideal time then to look at potentially using your free hit chip, where you're only going to have a few fixtures. A lot of people are going to be playing without a starting 11. So I think that'll be a great time for you to get a full team out, and hopefully then gain some extra points above others. Feel free to leave a comment below about who you think will be vital this week and going forward. If you feel I've missed anyone, put their name below to hear mine and other managers' thoughts. If you like this video, please give it a like and hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell not to miss more content coming soon. Thanks for watching.